Have you ever heard a sound so raw it stops your heart, not from pain, but from something deeper? That morning, I was walking my usual trail just past the old pine bend, where the frost still clings to the grass even when the sun says it's spring. I wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary, maybe a couple of deer or a squirrel fight, but then I heard it, a cry. Not human, not any bird or fox. It was a baby bear. And when I found it, Jesus, the cub was barely moving, slumped over the body of its mother. She was enormous, dark, and stiff, a gunshot clean through the neck, probably from some poacher. No tag, no meat taken, just the trophy of it. The cub kept pushing at her snout, confused, whimpering. It wasn't just heartbreaking, it was wrong, like watching a child knock on a coffin. I should have walked away. I know what you're thinking, it's a wild animal, it belongs to nature. But nature had already turned on it. I stood there frozen, debating whether to call the rangers or, I don't know. But when it looked up at me, just looked, I knew I couldn't leave. I wrapped my jacket around the cub and carried it back to the truck. It didn't struggle, just breathed heavy against my chest. I kept thinking it would start to bite or claw, but it didn't. It just trembled. I brought it home, put it in the old laundry room, warm and quiet, gave it some warm water mixed with honey. I didn't know if it was the right thing, but it drank slow, cautious, its eyes never leaving mine. I didn't sleep that night. Every hour or so, I checked on it. It curled up in an old towel like it had always been there. Sometime after midnight, it made a soft huffing sound in its sleep. I sat next to the washing machine, just listening. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I felt responsible. The next morning, I made a bigger bottle with baby formula. It drank faster, stronger, walked a bit. It limped, maybe from the cold or exhaustion. I thought about naming it, but something stopped me. This wasn't a pet. This was temporary, just until I figured out what to do. I didn't tell anyone, not yet. I didn't want to answer questions I didn't have answers for. I spent the day looking up wildlife rehab centers. Most were far, some had waiting lists. One guy told me flat out, they don't take carnivores anymore. Too much liability. You're better off putting it down, he said. I hung up. That evening, it followed me to the kitchen, little pads on the linoleum, sniffing around. I gave it some mashed bananas and oatmeal. It got all over its snout, and I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I hadn't laughed in a while. I looked out the kitchen window and saw kids riding their bikes down the street, their laughter echoing. My house felt strangely quiet. I realized then how much noise the world made when you weren't paying attention. When the sun dipped behind the ridge, I felt the tension again. What if it got sick? What if it died on my watch? What if someone found out? I turned off all the lights in the front of the house, drew the curtains, and made sure the back door was locked twice. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, I went outside for firewood. That's when I saw them, tracks. Big ones, circling the back porch, too big for a dog, wider than any boot. No drag marks, no claws showing. It wasn't running. It was looking. I followed the tracks for a few feet. They stopped near the garbage cans, then doubled back, clean, silent. I walked the perimeter of my yard twice, flashlight shaking in my hand. Not a sound, not even a bird. And the laundry room window was slightly open, just an inch. I was sure I'd closed it. I went back inside and locked everything. The cub was awake, eyes glowing faintly in the dark, watching me. I sat down on the floor beside it. "You got someone looking for you?" I whispered. It didn't answer, just curled up again. I didn't sleep the rest of that night either. Instead, I sat at the table, drinking black coffee, heart pounding, listening to the smallest creaks and sighs of the house. Every time the wind moved a branch against the window, I jumped. Something had been here. Something still could be. At dawn, I took the cub outside, wrapped in a blanket. The sky was pink and cold. I walked around the edge of the yard, checking for more tracks. Nothing new. The ones from last night were already starting to fade. I stood there for a long time, not knowing what to do. The cub squirmed in my arms and let out a soft grunt. I looked down at her. I was pretty sure now, and for a second, I felt something almost like calm. But just as quickly, it vanished. Back inside, I fed her again. She was stronger today, walked more, climbed awkwardly onto a pillow, and then fell off. She growled this tiny, ridiculous sound that somehow made me smile. But I couldn't ignore the truth, she was growing fast. I went online and found a forum about orphaned wildlife. One user warned, they imprint fast. If you keep them too long, there's no going back. No going back. I closed the laptop and looked over at her. She was asleep again, legs twitching like she was dreaming of running. I knew this couldn't last, but I also knew I wasn't ready to let go. Outside, the wind picked up, and the pine trees started to sway. I heard something crack far off in the woods. Probably just a branch. Probably. But I checked the locks again anyway. By the third day, I knew I had to do something more than warm milk and towels. The cub, she wasn't just surviving now, she was alert, active, curious, and I was way out of my depth. So that morning, I wrapped her up and drove to the only vet I knew who had any wildlife experience, Dr. Kimmel. He was retired, lived on the edge of town, and worked with the Forest Service back in the day. I called ahead, told him I had an injured stray, didn't give details. When he saw what I carried in, his eyes went wide. "You serious, Jack?" he said. "That's a bear cub. She's alone. Her mom was shot." He didn't touch her right away, just looked. Eventually, he gave a slow sigh and motioned me inside. "She looks healthy. No fractures. Probably dehydrated, maybe some bruised ribs. But she's young. Couple of months, maybe less." I nodded, trying to hold it together. "You can't keep her," he added, not looking at me. "I'm not planning on raising a bear in my house, if that's what you think. I'm just keeping her alive until I figure something out." Kimmel leaned on the counter. "Jack, listen. You keep her much longer, she'll bond with you. Imprint. That's dangerous for both of you. I've seen it before. Wild doesn't stay tame. I'm not looking to tame her. Just help." He shook his head. "Help means letting her go before it's too late, or calling someone who knows how to handle it." I tried. "No one's taking her." He was quiet for a while, then handed me a small bottle of antibiotic cream and some vitamin powder. "This is all I can do. And Jack, be careful. You're not just risking her life driving home." Her small head resting on my arm, I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was being selfish. But looking at her, eyes shut, trusting me completely, I couldn't just hand her off to some facility where she'd be caged or worse. That afternoon, my neighbor Clyde spotted me carrying a sack of oats into the garage. He shouted from his porch, "You raising livestock in there, Jack?" "Just organizing old gear," I called back. "Smells like something's alive." I forced a laugh. Maybe a raccoon snuck in. Clyde didn't laugh back. People had started to notice. I needed to move fast. The garage was detached, a weathered wooden shell from when my grandfather fixed up tractors. I spent the next day clearing it out, piles of rusted tools, half-empty paint cans, broken chairs. By nightfall, I had a space in the back corner, insulated with old blankets and a heater from my camping gear. She took to it fast, liked the shadows, the smell of oil and earth. I cut a small window for air and light, fed her inside quietly, played the radio low so the silence wouldn't spook her, and for a little while, it worked. She was growing, that much was clear. She got stronger, bolder, climbed up boxes, chewed through the corner of a tarp, tried to open a paint can with her teeth. Once, when I stepped too close while she was eating, she growled, not playfully, but real, from the gut. I backed off. She looked ashamed right after, like she knew she'd crossed a line. But I knew too. This wasn't a puppy. Instinct was kicking in. Later that week, as I returned from buying formula and apples at the feed store, Mrs. Wheeler, another neighbor, called out while walking her dog. "Heard you've been keeping something in your garage." "Just some old tools." "Sounds like more than that, at night." "Growling." "Maybe raccoons." She narrowed her eyes. "Be careful, Jack. Some folks are starting to talk." The next morning, I found a note stuck to my front door, just 2 words, "Call DNR." That was it. No signature, but I knew what it meant. Someone was planning to report me. I doubled down, reinforced the garage door, only fed her at night, even parked my truck in back so I could go in and out without being seen. But the stress was building. Every creak in the floorboards made me flinch. Every shadow outside the window had me on edge. And she kept growing. Then came the night it all cracked. I came home late from a shift at the mill. I'd been gone longer than usual. When I stepped into the yard, I felt it, something off. The silence wasn't right. No crickets, no wind. I ran to the garage. The door was open, not wide, but enough. A corner of it had been split, one of the hinges broken clean. Inside, the blankets were torn, food dishes overturned, and she was gone. No blood, no fur, just emptiness, like she had vanished into thin air. I stood there for a long time, the cold settling into my bones, my heart thudding. Then I heard something in the woods, branches snapping. I took one step forward, then stopped because I wasn't sure who or what was watching me. The moment I saw that empty garage, I ran. I didn't grab a flashlight, didn't think, I just ran into the woods like a man possessed. I didn't call anyone, didn't tell the neighbors. If she was out there, lost, confused, maybe scared, I had to be the one to find her. The trees swallowed me whole. Pine needles crunched under my boots, and moonlight barely touched the forest floor. I called her name, not that I ever gave her a proper one, just a sound I used sometimes. "Hey, girl." I shouted it again and again. Nothing. Then I tripped. My foot caught under a root and I went down hard. Felt something rip in my ankle, sharp pain shooting up my leg. I rolled onto my side, gritting my teeth. Great, now I was stuck in the woods alone, in the middle of the night, with a busted leg and no plan. I tried to stand, failed, crawled toward a fallen log, and pulled myself up halfway. Everything spun. The cold sank deeper. That's when I heard her. A rustle. A low huff. Something heavy moving through the brush. I held my breath. It could have been anything, a raccoon, a coyote, another bear. Then she appeared. She padded into view, silent. Head low, she saw me and froze for a second. We just stared at each other. Then she came closer, sniffed the air, her nose touched my boot, and gently, she licked my ankle right where it hurt. I exhaled a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "Hey, girl." "Yeah, it's okay," I whispered. She lay beside me, just lay there. Her warmth next to my body kept the shaking away. We stayed like that for almost an hour. I didn't move, didn't talk, just breathed. Eventually, I managed to get to my feet, leaning on a thick branch, limping. We made our way back to the house. I let her into the mudroom and collapsed onto the kitchen floor. My ankle was twice its normal size. The next morning, I went to the urgent care clinic. Told them I slipped on the porch stairs. Sprained, not broken. They said to wrap it tight, stay off it for a while. I nodded, already knowing I wouldn't. When I got home, my wife was waiting. She came to check in on me, said the kids missed me. She walked in, took one look around, and knew. "It's still here." She came back. I couldn't leave her out there. "Jack, this isn't okay anymore. This isn't about kindness. This is obsession." She would have died. And what about us? What about our kids? What if she attacks someone? She wouldn't. You don't know that. She was crying. She never cries. That hit me harder than the ankle. "You've got a choice," she said. "It's her or us. I won't bring the kids here while this goes on." She left. Didn't slam the door, just walked out. That night, I sat in the garage, watching the bear cub pace in circles. She'd grown fast, nearly knee-high now. Her shoulders broader, the playful bounce gone, replaced by deliberate movement. I tossed her an apple. She caught it midair, then smashed it into the floor with one paw. I don't know what clicked in her brain, but something shifted after that. The next day, Clyde from next door knocked on the back fence. I tried to wave him off, but he stepped closer. "Listen, Jack, people are worried. Last night, someone said they saw a shadow near Wheeler's coop. Chickens were spooked. You think it was a bear?" He looked me dead in the eye. "I think maybe you've got something in that garage you shouldn't, and if it gets loose again, someone's going to get hurt." Before I could answer, the bear let out a low growl from behind the door. Clyde's face went pale. "Jack, you need to fix this, now." He walked off fast. That evening, I kept her inside, fed her early, closed the garage tight, double-checked every latch and hinge, put up a motion sensor light by the back gate. Told myself it was just one more night. That tomorrow I'd call someone, finally do what I should have done weeks ago. I barely slept. At dawn, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Wheeler, face pale, hands shaking. "Something got one of my hens," he said. "Tore it to pieces. Feathers everywhere." I didn't say anything. "You got something you want to tell me?" Behind me, the garage was still closed, locked, silent. "It wasn't her," I said. He didn't look convinced. "I've already called the county. They're sending someone." He turned and walked away without waiting for a reply. I stood there, heart pounding, thinking of the growl Clyde had heard, the new strength I'd seen in her, the way she smashed the apple. And I started to wonder, had I really locked her in that night? When I checked the garage again, everything looked fine. She was curled up, asleep, breathing steady. But something inside me had cracked. For the first time since I found her, I was afraid. I was out back fixing the broken latch on the garage door when the green truck pulled into my driveway. White lettering on the side read, County Wildlife Division. My stomach dropped. A man stepped out, tall, lean, wearing a brimmed hat and reflective vest. He didn't smile. His movements were methodical, confident, like someone who'd done this 100 times before. Jack Miller? I nodded, wiping my hands on a rag. We've had reports of an unregistered wild animal on your property. I need to take a look. I hesitated. What if I say no? Then I'll be back with a warrant and 3 deputies. There was no menace in his voice, just certainty. He already knew what he'd find, and he probably thought he was doing the right thing. I looked past him. My truck was gassed up. I'd filled a bag with food, water, first aid supplies the night before, just in case. I took a breath. She's not dangerous. She's just a cub. Doesn't matter. You're not certified. She needs to be transferred. He stepped toward the garage. That's when I made the choice. I turned and ran through the back door into the garage. She was awake, pacing. She knew something was wrong. I grabbed the backpack, opened the rear door, and whistled. Come on, girl. She followed. We slipped into the trees. The ranger shouted after me, but I didn't stop. My ankle still ached, but adrenaline numbed it. Each branch that scratched my arms, each root I stumbled over, it didn't matter. I just kept moving. The forest swallowed us. I didn't have a plan, just keep moving. Away from the road, away from neighbors, away from men in uniforms. By noon, we were miles in. I found a hunting blind I hadn't used in years, still mostly intact. We rested there. I fed her jerky and apples, drank from a stream. She stayed close, but her eyes darted constantly. Every noise made her flinch. I was starting to see it. She wasn't the same cub anymore. Her shoulders were broader, her stare more focused, wild. There were moments she'd look at me, and I'd see something new, something I didn't fully recognize. Late afternoon, I heard voices in the distance, radios, dogs. The barking was faint but steady. They were tracking us. They were coming. I packed up, started heading deeper. My steps were slower now. I kept checking behind me, half expecting to see orange vests pushing through the brush. Then my phone buzzed. 1 bar of service. A text from Greg. They're headed your way. I'm sorry. They made me talk. Greg, old friend, neighbor. The only person I'd hinted the truth to. I knew he wasn't trying to betray me, but it still hit hard. It meant the world I tried to build around her was collapsing. I shoved the phone into my pocket and kept going. Just before nightfall, we made it to the old ranger station, abandoned for years. I'd found it once as a teen. Half the roof was gone, vines through the windows, but the walls and floor still held. There was something comforting about that place, like it had survived, just like us. We huddled there, cold creeping in. I wrapped us both in my coat. She laid her head on my lap. I'm trying, I whispered. I don't know what else to do. She didn't respond, of course, but she didn't move away either. That was something. I must have drifted off. Somewhere in the night, I woke to weight on my chest. She was standing over me, breathing heavily. Her eyes were wide, not scared, alert. Her fur was bristled, her body tense. I sat up slowly. What is it? She didn't move. Then, in a flash, she lunged. Her paw caught my shoulder, claws grazing deep. I fell back, stunned. She roared, loud, furious, wild. I scrambled to the side, heart racing, pain burning through my arm. She didn't chase. Just stood there, chest heaving. There was blood on her claws. My blood. I crawled to the corner, pressing my hand to the wound. Blood soaked through my shirt. She stared for another few seconds, then turned and walked out of the shack into the dark. Gone. The sound of her steps faded into the woods. I must have blacked out. When I opened my eyes again, everything was white, bleach-white walls, a beeping monitor. In my hand, a hospital bracelet. My wife sat in the corner, pale, quiet. She looked at me and didn't say anything at first. Her eyes were red. "They found you yesterday," she said finally. "A hiker saw blood near the station. Called it in. I tried to sit up but couldn't. My whole side ached. My shoulder was bandaged thick." "The cub?" She shook her head. "Gone." They looked. No sign. I closed my eyes, tried to remember the moment, the way she looked at me before she left. Not hate. Something else. Something I still don't understand. The doctor said I lost a lot of blood. That if I hadn't been found, I wouldn't have made it through the night. But none of them asked how it happened. Maybe they knew, maybe they didn't want to know. Later that evening, I stared out the hospital window. The woods were far away now, distant, quiet. Somewhere out there, she was alive, I was sure of it. And maybe, just maybe, she remembered me too. If you love stories about wildlife rescue, click the subscribe button below. Here's how the button looks on different devices. Every subscription helps spread these stories and raise awareness. The more people know, the more animals get the help they need. And remember, subscribing is completely free. Click subscribe now and join us in protecting wildlife. A month passed. The stitches came out, the bruises faded, but the scar on my shoulder would always be there, a deep curved reminder. I told the hospital it was a hiking accident. No one pushed harder. Maybe they didn't want the details, maybe they already guessed. I didn't blame anyone, not the ranger, not Greg, not even her. Some things aren't meant to be tamed. I just didn't learn that fast enough. My wife visited twice during that month, once with the kids. They were quiet, unsure. I didn't talk much, just smiled when they handed me a drawing. A stick figure version of me standing beside what they clearly meant to be a bear. Big circle head, smiley face. They'd colored her brown with a blue sky above us. I kept the picture, still have it, folded in my coat pocket. She looked at me when they weren't watching. "You look different," she said. "I am," I nodded, but didn't say more. When I finally got out, spring had shifted. The air smelled greener, the trees were heavier with leaves, and everything felt alive again, except me. I walked with a limp, used a cane the doctor gave me, said it might go away, might not. Every step was a reminder. I didn't go home right away. I drove out past the ranger station, up into the deeper parts of the woods, where the trees grow closer and the paths vanish. I parked on a patch of grass and started walking. It took twice as long with the limp, but I made it back to the clearing where I last saw her, where she left me, where it ended and maybe began again. The shack still stood, barely. One side had caved in during a storm, but I recognized it immediately. I stood there for a while, just breathing. The air was thick with pine and wet leaves. Nothing moved, but it didn't feel empty. Then I saw them, tracks. Fresh, heavy, deeper than they should have been for a young bear, but unmistakable. The pads, the claw marks. She'd been here recently. The pattern of the steps told me she wasn't wandering, she was watching. Careful, like she was looking for something familiar. Something rose in my chest, something that had been buried under the pain, fear, and doubt. Hope. I didn't follow the tracks, didn't want to. I'd already broken too many lines. But I pulled a small cooler from my pack, opened it, and took out the fish I'd bought that morning, caught locally, clean. I placed it on a flat rock near the tree-line, took a moment to straighten it as if it mattered. "Just in case," I whispered. Then I stepped back, sat down on a nearby log, and waited. The sun dipped behind the hills. The woods changed their sound. Birds quieted, insects took over, and the cool of evening settled in. I stayed still. The forest breathed around me, still nothing. I lit a small lantern and left it near the fish, soft glow, nothing too bright. Then I climbed back up to the ridge above the clearing, rolled out a sleeping bag, and watched. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched the stars move, listened to every crunch, every rustle. I thought I heard something twice, a snapping twig, a soft grunt, but it passed quickly. Sometime after midnight, I heard it, soft steps, wet smacking. I didn't move, just listened. In the morning, the fish was gone, but there were no tracks, nothing obvious. Like she knew how to hide now, like she'd learned how to move, like the forest itself, quiet, invisible. I smiled. It hurt, but I smiled. Every week after that, I came back. Same spot, same offering. Sometimes the food disappeared, sometimes it didn't. I never saw her again, not fully. But I knew, I always knew. Once, in the distance, I caught a glimpse of something dark between the trees, watching, but it moved away before I could even be sure. Another time, I found a small pile of rocks stacked neatly near the clearing. Could have been wind, could have been animals, but I had my own idea. One morning, I found claw marks on the tree next to the stone, 3 long, deliberate strokes, not random, not accidental. They were deep, fresh, like a message, like a signature. That was the last time I went. Not because I stopped caring, but because I'd finally understood she didn't need me anymore. And maybe that's what saving someone really means, not keeping them close, but letting them go, accepting they have their own path to walk, even if you're no longer part of it. I went home, spent more time with my kids, fixed the garage, took the drawings off the fridge, and put up new ones. Helped with homework, burned dinner twice, got better on the 3rd try. Sometimes I sit out back and stare at the woods. Sometimes I think I hear something in the trees, a low breath, a shifting shadow. Sometimes I call out softly, but I never get an answer. And sometimes I wonder, was it right, what I did? Was it selfish, brave, stupid? I don't know. But I'm alive, and so is she. The last time I visited the clearing, I left a note beside the fish. It said, "You were never mine to keep, just mine to help." I don't know if she read it, don't know if she ever came back after that, but I like to think she did. And I like to think she understood. Because sometimes, even in silence, you can hear the answer.